Alrighty, y'all, we got a trade to talk about today. And I know, I'm a little bit late on this, but guess what? Your boy just got back from traveling, literally like just landed, just got home, went straight here to record for you guys. I know, I'm so committed. Anyway, let's talk about this trade because I think this is a pretty significant trade nonetheless. So the Charlotte Hornets have traded Nick Richards, something that we had suspected would probably happen and we had actually advised that they should do in the offseason. They sent him over to the Phoenix Suns for Josh Okogie. And there's some other parts of this. The Hornets are also sending a second-round pick along with Nick Richards. The Suns are sending 3 second-round picks back with Josh Okogie. So let's break all this down, right? Because all of this is connected to the possible Jimmy Butler trade, right? Because we all know the Phoenix Suns want to get Jimmy Butler, but there's kind of a side piece of this that the Phoenix Suns are like, hey, we're trying to get both Bradley Beal and Yusuf Nurkic out of this team, right? They're kind of shunning them at this point. Like, Beal's like coming off the bench right now, and I don't even think they're playing Nurkic. And in all fairness, Nurkic has been having a pretty poor basketball season outside of just general rebounding, I guess. But nonetheless, they've needed some help at the center position because the other centers that they have on the roster, Mason Plumlee just has not been very good at this point. And look, he's fine in like a very reserved role, right? Just because he's very experienced. He's been around for a long time. Can't do him for a ton of time. Also, Iguodala, the rookie, you've seen some interesting playmaking out of him, but otherwise, like, it's not like he's like a big-time athlete or like that big and strong and going to get a ton of rebounds or anything like that on a team where, look, they really just need a solidified role player at the center position that's going to get some rebounds, going to block some shots and everything like that. They also have Bol, but we understand that Bol is also limited in his abilities as well. So they went and bring in Nick Richards, right? For those of you that aren't aware, Nick Richards is probably one of the best value players in the NBA. What does that mean exactly? He's only on like a $5 million contract or something like that, and that's the same for next year as well. And given the production that you get, yeah, here it is, $5 million. Given the production you get from Nick Richards, that's an absolute steal. Nick Richards is like a starter quality center in the NBA. I've seen some Charlotte Hornets fans talk about like, Nick Richards' effort isn't always that great. Okay, first of all, have some self-awareness for your team. Your team is pretty laughably bad at points. Kind of hard to get up and do it every single night, and then you guys are going to respond and say like, oh, well, he should just do it anyway. Yeah, you're right, but people are people at the end of the day. You guys don't get up and go to work with all the intensity anyway, right? Like every single day. It just doesn't happen. But regardless, Nick Richards is good at a couple things, and really good at a couple things. He's a really good shot blocker. He's a really good rebounder, and he's athletic as shit for his size, right? He's going to catch a lot of alley-oops. He's going to do stuff like that, and that's exactly what they need. When he starts this year, he's basically 10 points, a block and a half, and 10 rebounds. Like, that's what you get out of Nick Richards, which that's all the Phoenix Suns really need at the end of the day if they're going to have 3 other stars, guys like Tyus Jones, right? This can be your starting center going forward, and it's really cheap. Like, they might have the best 2, like, value players in the NBA between him and Tyus Jones at this point. And now, what did they give up to go get him? They traded Josh Okogie, who we all knew he was going to get moved, or they were going to try to move him at some point this year, right? The $8 million wasn't worth the production. We all know Josh Okogie's a very good defensive player, especially like in one-on-one situations, good at switching onto people, stuff like that. The 3-point shot actually was falling this year, but it was on a very small clip, so I'm not sure I necessarily trust it. It feels more so like we were riding a high right now because Josh Okogie historically has been a very, very poor shooter in his career, and that's been the problem, right? If Josh Okogie could shoot every single night, then we've got an interesting ball player at the end of the day, but instead you kind of have basically the new age Tony Allen, if you would, because you've got kind of the smaller but like thicker framed guard that kind of has to play the forward spot because he doesn't have a lot of like offensive ability. But nonetheless, they move on from him, who was, he just wasn't really helping the team out a ton at the end of the day. So you get rid of him, you bring in an instant starter, impact player that you can use. I'm sure they're still going to try to trade Nick Richards and Bradley Beal, or Nick Richards, Yusuf Nurkic and Bradley Beal at the end of the day. So what does this mean for Phoenix now, though, in terms of the assets, right? Because they did get rid of 3 second-round picks. They got one back. I feel like the Suns GM is really good at like just reaccumulating these second round picks, right? So we'll see what they can do to do that. The reason they even had these picks in the beginning was they got them on draft night this year when they traded back to go get Ryan Dunn so that the Nuggets could go get Deron Holmes, who that trade made a lot of sense for both sides. At the end of the day, that was an elite trade by both of those GMs, in my opinion. Unfortunately, Deron Holmes went down. I know the Nuggets could really use that depth right about now, but the Suns ended up getting Ryan Dunn, who's been really good for them. them, and they got these picks who they've turned into Nick Richards, who's a starter level player. Now, they only have like the one draft pick, like the one first round pick to work with at this point. So they're pretty much depleted, right? And clearly they're all in on winning and everything. That's totally fine. You can always, like, when I see these teams that don't have like any draft picks now at this point, right? I always think, okay, well, they've got assets on the team that they can move to get more picks back. Unfortunately, they don't have their own pick at this point. But look, the Suns are trying to win championships, and they've got a while to go, right? Because they're falling off pretty quickly, so things need to happen quickly, and we don't know what's going to happen with the Jimmy Butler stuff at the end of the day. But this is a good, like, move regardless, in my opinion. I just think Nick Richards is going to help you win more basketball games at the end of the day than if you just had Josh Okogie on the team. If you're the Charlotte Hornets, you got 3 second-round picks for Nick Richards. I guess you technically added 2, and you probably just feel better about these 3, like all 3 of these picks rather than the one you got rid of at the end of the day, which is totally fair. So for Nick Richards, he wasn't probably going to be a part of your future anyway, because you're just a long ways away from it. Mark Williams has looked good this season when he's playing, and we all know he has a lot of injury problems. I'm guessing Musa gets brought back up or whatever. He's on the 2-way deal, I believe. So maybe he gets a long-term contract now. I know he's been fun to watch in terms of effort and rebounding, because he's trying to get his NBA deal. So I'm guessing that's who Charlotte goes with instead of Taj Gibson. That'd be my guess in terms of backup big minutes. But look, the Hornets aren't trying to win basketball games necessarily anyway right now. But yeah, no, you got picks for Nick Richards. You should be happy about that. I mean, again, he wasn't part of your long-term plans anyway. You didn't have like an excess of picks by any means, so you got some assets going forward for him. And you got Josh Okogie, who, look, the Charlotte Hornets have struggled in terms of stopping people this season, so they're saying they're going to hold on to Okogie, and they're going to throw him out into the rotation and see if he can't bring a little bit more intensity to the team and everything. So fair enough. I mean, I think Charles Lee and everything that he does is really, really interesting. I'll be curious to see what happens when that guy gets a little bit more talent on his roster. I'm starting to kind of buy into him a little bit more just from what I'm seeing, like, on the court. I feel like there's improvement on the way, but we'll see if the Charlotte Hornets are done making trades. I'm sure they'd still like to move on from like a Miles Bridges and stuff, but regardless, I think this is a good trade for both teams. I think Charlotte just getting assets and getting some more intensity on a team for a guy that they didn't necessarily need long term is great. And then obviously the Suns get an impact starter right away, which is just awesome, right? And I'm curious to see what happens when Nick Richards has all these kind of star players around him and he can just kind of free run to the rim all the time, and just all he has to do is block shots, grab rebounds. Like, that's it. That's all he has to do, and he's really good at those things. So I think this is good. We obviously won't know the full extent of this trade until we actually see if they get like a Jimmy Butler or something else, if they move Beal, who's going to take on Nurkic or whatever, right? Can they add some more depth to this team? I don't know. Or are they just going to be stuck with Nurkic and Beal anyway, which maybe Nurkic in a backup role isn't such a big deal. I feel like that relationship's probably severed at this point, considering how they're treating both him and Beal, which is very odd to hear, especially from somebody like me who gets to hear quite a bit of what's going on in that organization due to my personal connections. Interesting, to say the least, but I don't know. I'll be curious to see if this turns into anything at the end of the day, or is this kind of it for Phoenix? I don't know. I'm going to be... I don't know, man. It's going to be a weird deadline. And, like, are we ever going to see Brandon Ingram or Zach LaVine get moved, or even Jimmy? I don't know. I have to imagine Jimmy Butler gets traded at some point. This just feels like a situation you don't really, like, walk away from. Like, both sides just feel like they kind of need to split. And I think it makes sense for both sides at the end of the day, for anybody curious. I think it's just time, unfortunately. So, I don't know. You guys let me know what you think down below. I'm sure people are pretty much in favor of this trade all around. This is something that we've kind of hypothesized would happen. And we even recommended this in a video that Phoenix go do a deal like that. So kind of funny how that's worked. This is, I think, the second time that we've seen something like this happen. So kind of cool at the end of the day. Kind of cool. In terms of like salary cap stuff, by the way, like, yes, Phoenix loses a bit of spending ability, but this is much better spending ability. So I don't think it's a big deal at all. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Obviously, I'm back. I want to still deliver my 5 videos a week that I've been trying to do and everything. So I'm going to try to get you guys a video tomorrow as well. But hey, appreciate you guys as always, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks so much. Bye.